What's up, guys? How's it going? Yeah, we're back. Sorry it took so long. Anyway, today we're going to review the Spyderco Dragonfly 2 with FRN scales. And first and foremost, I've used this knife for about a week or so. Fantastic. Love it. It's not entirely my cup of tea as far as pivot mechanism and whatnot. It's a lockback, so it's obviously not really going to be fidgety. But it is going to be incredibly it's going to be incredibly reliable, as far as not worrying that the blade is going to snapshot on you or break lock or whatever it may be. So that's really nice. Spyderco has never been a brand that I'm like overly obsessed with. They make great knives, don't get me wrong. I think that there's Spyderco is kind of like, I don't mean this in a negative fashion. Spyderco is kind of like Benchmade. It's like their own like little mini community. I feel like most of the people I've met who like Spyderco are generally people who like only get Spyderco. Not necessarily saying that's everybody, but most of the people I've met at least are just like very Spyderco obsessed, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, Benchmade has a huge fan base. Anyway, so yeah, we'll get to the talking points of the knife. VG10, which is a great blade steel. I think more manufacturers should use VG10. It's superior to 14C, and it's still like it's still a budget-oriented blade steel. I believe it's just under 154 cm as far as like quality and capabilities, as far as like edge retention, corrosion resistance, ease of sharpening, that kind of thing, because VG10 is a Japanese blade steel that's usually used in kitchen knives. Not to say you can't use it in EDC knives, but yeah. So I love the fact that Spyderco uses blade steel like VG10, because a lot of people just aren't very familiar with it, and it's an incredibly capable steel. The other thing I do love about Spyderco is their brand isn't like just tailored to like one specific lockout mechanism, but they are one of the few brands that do tons of lockback mechanisms, and I think that that's really cool in its own regard, because most brands who do a lockback, it's sort of like a specialized lockback. It's like maybe they're more known for doing like button locks or access locks or frame locks, and like here and there they'll sprinkle in like a back lock. And the fact that Spyderco does a lot of back locks is just, I don't know, it's neat and it's different. Besides obviously their general design trademark of the giant circle hole in the blade, which kudos to them for having that as a one of their proprietary design aesthetics. I will say that some of the knives that they make that have it just look a little ridiculous, but there's nothing wrong with ridiculous knives. I wish more knife makers were a little more exploratory with their creative designs. So kudos to them in those two regards. And last but not least, my other talking point is FRN. Everybody in the EDC world generally does not like FRN. I'm sure there's like a small community, or it might be 50-50, who knows. But I've never encountered somebody who's like, man, I love FRN scales. Just haven't. And Spyderco is one of those different companies because they do a lot of FRN scales, and the FRN scales don't feel like crap. That's the biggest complaint, is usually it just feels like you're holding a cheap knife, and they don't feel, the fit and finish just doesn't feel quality, that kind of thing. There are other brands who do FRN, and I'll be honest, I think the issue with why FRN doesn't work or doesn't feel like it's a worthy substitute for scales or just handle material is because most people do them at such a thin thickness, and I understand why. One, you do FRN scales because you're saving weight. Two, FRN is a composite material that's incredibly rigid, incredibly shock resistant, and just not really prone to damage easily. But again, it's weight savings. So, but I think most companies who use FRN and the knives feel cheap because of them, I think it's purely because of the thickness of the scales. Like these look like 2.5, 3 mil scales. I could be wrong on that. Wouldn't surprise me. But the scale thickness makes it feel quality. It makes it feel like you're not just holding, you know, kind of holding hot garbage. And I will say the fit and finish on the scales is quite fantastic, which is another issue that I feel a lot of companies have, where they'll use FRN, but there's like really generally rough edges that don't feel great. And that kind of adds to the lackluster fit and finish. But at least in my eyes, Spyderco does FRN right. There are very, very few companies that do FRN right. I think Spyderco does FRN really well, and I'd like to see more companies focus on doing it well, because it is a cool handle material. It's, like I said, incredibly light, but incredibly rigid, damage resistant. I think it's incredibly heat resistant, and also cold resistant. I don't remember what the general FRN like temperature parameters are, but it's a pretty tough material. And granted, obviously, it's fiberglass reinforced nylon. So when you apply those composites together, you're going to get something that's strong and incredibly durable. I will say this: FRN is generally like a proprietary material. Like if you're a knife maker, you can't just go out. Or for those who are knife makers, or want to be knife makers, or you're just generally curious, you can't. I don't think you can really go out and buy FRN. I've looked, because usually you can just like buy like a sheet of like micarta, or a sheet of like G10, or a sheet of like aluminum or titanium or whatever. FRN is generally like a proprietary material, so it's usually the company makes it. I could be wrong on that. I could most certainly be wrong on that. There could be a company that they outsource that like specifically makes FRN for them. I'm unaware of it if that's the case, but yeah, that is something, because I was curious one time and I was like, FRN, I kind of want to try and use it for a knife that I'm making, and I looked it up and I'm like, yeah, I guess you can't buy it. So yeah. So also going back to the blade steel VG10, right? I will say, I said early in the video that this is easy to sharpen. It's actually harder to sharpen than 14C, but the trade-off is it holds an edge better, and it's it just holds an edge better, and it's incredibly corrosion resistant, compared to 14C. But I will say, according to Google, this is more chip prone. So this is similar in the regard of D2, where it's easier to damage if you're doing like hacking tasks, chopping tasks. But that aside, I do wish more companies use VG10. Okay, so those are the talking points that I wanted to focus on. Now we'll focus on the knife. Used the knife for a week. It feels good. It feels real quality, obviously. I love the fact that they have double jimping. So you have jimping on the bottom here, and you have jimping on the top. And they're very generous with the jimping, because you have jimping from this lockback all the way to the knife, which I thoroughly enjoy, especially considering it is a smaller knife. So your thumb is going to take up quite a bit of space, and so you don't really have to worry about finger slippage from sweaty hands if you aren't wearing gloves and using this for light duty work. This is a light duty knife. I mean, if you wanted to chop a tree down with it or do some like really ignorant shit with it, like you certainly could. I wouldn't stop you. I'd probably pay money to watch. But as far as ergonomics, 10 out of 10 for me. Very comfortable to hold. The G10 or the FRN is very grippy. The blade is very slicey. I used it to break down boxes, and I had no issues just slicing through the cardboard. It was like it was butter. And same with the tape. You could probably cut zip ties with this very easily. You could probably cut like electrical cord with this pretty easily too. Almost said Spyderco. Spyderco makes their knives are just incredibly sharp out of the box. It's one of the other things I kind of appreciate. I appreciate about Spyderco. Same with like SRM. Their knives are always incredibly sharp. But yeah, ergonomics are fantastic. It's got a reversible pocket clip. It's a lockback. So you definitely have a very, very secure lockout mechanism. I will say my really only one complaint with this is I like to be able to flick knives open, and you really have to put quite a bit of force into this to flick it open. Especially if you're using the hole, because I like to usually like reverse flick knives out, and you have to get the blade to like here or here, and then like really throw your wrist to get it out of lock. It's probably not like that for other Spyderco models, but this one specifically, this is like really the only thing I don't like is the blade deployment is kind of slow for me, because I use my thumb to get it out. But you know, that's really the only downside. Aside from that, I genuinely really like the knife. I think it's fantastic. It's a personal. I bought it for myself. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get another Spyderco. Why not? Not entirely. The brand isn't entirely my style. But I do thoroughly respect Spyderco, and I do enjoy the knives that I do have from them. So I don't go out of my way to buy knives from them, but if I happen to be in a particularly dazzling mood, I will certainly pick one up. Trying to think if there's anything else it's incredibly small, but I mean, kind of Dragonfly named, it's kind of there in the name. It's going to be a small knife. They might make a bigger version of this. I'm not sure. I'm not highly versed with Spyderco as I am with other brands, so but I would recommend this to somebody if they're looking for another EDC. They're looking for something different, something new. Maybe you've never heard of Spyderco, maybe you have heard of Spyderco but you were unsure. I would certainly recommend the Dragonfly. This is the Dragonfly 2. Don't know what happened to the 1. I think retail on this, when I bought this, was like between like 120 and 140. I didn't pay that. I got a deal. I think I paid like 60 or 70 bucks for this. So I'll take it. I got like 50% off. Yeah, and I think they offer this in a bunch of different colors too. I think like you can get it in like blue and yellow, green, FRN scale wise. But it's not hard to deploy, I will say that as well. It doesn't have a ton of resistance when you're trying to get it out of lock, which is nice. So it is one hand deployable, and it's not super hard to put away either. Some lockbacks have a really stiff spring, and it's difficult to get them back in lock. But yeah, this is a really, really well done knife. Really well done. There's the exact model for anybody who's interested. Yeah, that's that. There's the only real negative thing about the knife to me was it's just you can't really like flick it out of lock. I tried I tried pretty hard the other day to do it. You really have to whip it to get it out of lock, with one hand. But aside from that, it's a solid knife. It's not my go-to. It's not like, oh, you know what knife I want to carry today? This knife. I'm for anybody who's new to the channel, who's watching this. One, I apologize if this video is boring, because it's not meant to be boring. I'm just incredibly out of it and tired. But I like weird shit. I like weird knives, and knives that are just kind of push the boundaries of like design and aesthetic, and also I love fidgety knives. I'm a big knife fidgeter, and so a lot of Spyderco's models don't really appeal to me in that regard. Not to say they don't have models that you can't fidget with. It's not really the direction that they aim in as far as like lockout mechanisms. Yeah, but overall, great knife. Highly recommend it. I honestly just highly recommend Spyderco in general. If you're someone who's either new to the EDC space, or you just really haven't given Spyderco a thought to, you know, to add to your collection or add one to your everyday carry to like cycle out, I'd recommend it genuinely. They have an outstanding reputation. They make high quality products, and they have quite a wide budget range. I think you can get a knife. I think the cheapest knife they make is like $20. And then the more expensive knives are like $400 or $500 roughly, or say $300 to $500. I think the stovepipe is like $450. That's like one of the more premium knives. I can't think of like some of the other more premium stuff that they make, but regardless, they make good stuff. So worth checking out if you don't already know about them, or you haven't decided to pick one up. I'd recommend the Dragonfly. Great. This would be a great like little like EDC work folder. Just throw in your pocket, especially if you're an electrician. I don't know why that popped in my head, but this is a very slicey blade, so it'd be easy to slice away like wire if you're, you know, doing electrical work. Also, if you're just breaking down boxes and stuff. Maybe not giant boxes, but, you know, small to medium. Good box cutting knife. Yeah. That's that. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Appreciate it. Next video I'm going to be recording is going to be about one of my favorite knives that I recently acquired, and just, yeah, so, yeah. Alright guys, have a good one. I hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry if I sounded dead inside, but I'm not. I'm just tired. So, have a safe day. Drink some good food. Eat some good water. I'm so fried. Drink some water, eat some good food, be kind to yourself, okay? You know, the world's in a really shitty spot right now. And I'm someone who I like spreading positivity, and you know, everybody deserves to have a good day. Most people deserve to have a good day. Unless you're like an entitled fucking Kyle or Karen or something, or you're some fuckstick who doesn't put your shopping cart back after you get done shopping. Well, then, you know, you have the day you deserve. Anyway, all right, I'm out of here. Later, guys.